Hey everyone, Mike Keenan, KM Fitness here in Manasquan. Today I turned on the television at the studio and they re-released Twinkies. Okay, not something you definitely want to put on your nutrition program if your goal is fat loss. So people say, well, what's the problem with Twinkies? This is part one of a two-part video. Susan's going to come on later and talk a little bit more in detail about the importance of not putting starch and fat together. But I'm going to cover a little bit more about the insulin reaction. Susan's going to talk about some other hormonal reactions with regards to that. So here we have Twinkies. What's the breakdown of a Twinkie? Twinkie has carbohydrates and fats in it. Some of the carbohydrates are things like wheat flour, sugar, corn syrup, high fructose corn syrup, and it's also made with hydrogenated oils. Okay, but let's talk a little bit more about the carbohydrate effect in the body. Now, when you wake up in the morning, your liver and your muscles may be a little bit depleted of sugar, but during the course of the day, those liver and those muscle cells, they start to fill up with glycogen. Okay, and their ability to store sugar is limited because they're only so big. So any excess sugar that the body is going to encounter during the day and blood sugar rises, okay, the body's going to want to store that. So when you put in a big amount of carbohydrate in one sitting, not only does your blood sugar go up, but you get an exaggerated insulin response. And insulin, being a storage hormone, has to do something with that excess sugar. It's going to convert that excess glucose to triglyceride and store it as fat. Okay, but not just as any type of fat. It's going to store it as visceral fat. And we'll talk a little bit about that in a few minutes. The particle of cholesterol that's manufactured through the breakdown of sugar to the conversion of triglyceride gives you a very small particle, and that's called a VLDL type particle. Very low density lipoprotein. It's small, it's dense, and it's sticky, and it does adhere to the arterial walls, kind of like snow building up on the sidewalk. Now, we do have a type of cholesterol in our body called HDL, which is kind of like the garbage collector, and when it encounters cholesterol, it wants to remove it and recycle it, but this VLDL is very small, it's very sticky and very dense, and it's kind of like trying to scrape barnacles off the bottom of a boat. It's very difficult to do, so it doesn't clean up real well. And that process of that buildup of cholesterol in the arteries, that's called atherosclerosis, okay? I'm sure you've heard that term before. So with regards to what happens to the body when we start ingesting too much sugar, we get the atherosclerosis. We get the visceral fat. Visceral fat is the fat that surrounds your vital organs, and it's very difficult to get rid of. Now, some of us have a lot of subcutaneous fat. Okay, that's not as dangerous and can be removed, but the visceral fat does affect the function of the organs. Okay, what else comes with this type of cholesterol? We have an increased risk of heart disease, okay, because as the arterial walls start to clog, it decreases the passage for blood to flow through the arteries, and it also increases your risk of type 2 diabetes, and worst of all, it decreases your self-esteem. If you look in the mirror and you don't see what you want to see, it's going to affect the outcome of your day, every day, okay? So let's shift up to here. There's another hormone called cortisol, okay? And cortisol is excreted in high amounts when we are stressed, we have decreased sleep, and a low-calorie diet will cause an increase in cholesterol, because that's a big stress on the body, okay? And again, that goes back to, it's going to increase your visceral fat. When cortisol and insulin come together, okay, two things happen. It decreases the activity of something called hormone-sensitive lipase, and that's the hormone, or the enzyme rather, that allows you to break fat down to be utilized and to be burned. So when these two come together, cortisol and insulin, it decreases the activity of this hormone-sensitive lipase, and it increases the activity of lipoprotein lipase, which is your fat storage hormone. Okay? So, to kind of wrap things up, people say, well, I like Twinkies because they're sweet and they're fun to eat. Okay? I'm going to give you an alternative to that. Susan has put together a drink that I use every morning for breakfast. It's my first meal of the day. I'm usually up at 6 o'clock in the morning, out the door. I have to eat something quick. I take my blender, or my Vitamix, I put 2 ounces of almond milk in it, I dump in about 10 ice cubes, I put 2 teaspoons of cacao powder. I put a scoop of my protein powder in, 1 scoop of branched chain amino acids. I take an 8-ounce cup of chai tea, or you can use decaf coffee or regular coffee, a half a teaspoon of cinnamon, and I put 6 frozen strawberries in it. Okay, that gives me some glucose. I blend it and I enjoy it, and I'm out the door. And you could do this in the evening. The only thing I might change at the nighttime is I might not put the strawberries in, because I'm looking for a lower glycemic snack at the end of the night. So that's all I have to say today about Twinkies and why this would not be part of our nutrition plan. So look forward for part 2 coming next.